the one, the only, Bencio Land.
Good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, ideally speaking, as we continue this book, The 10 Really Dumb Mistakes Smart Couples Make. Three more chapters. Start chapter 14 today. Why couples fight. Talks about the element of fighting or arguing. Some people don't like to call it fighting. There's arguments in marriage. No such thing as fighting. Yes, there is such a thing as fighting. He talks in the first half of the chapter. Today we always do half a chapter. The second half of the chapter will be on Thursday. The first half of the chapter, he talks about the cause why fights destroy a marriage. Someone insults, one spouse insults the other one, and then they feel insulted, so they throw it back and forth. He compares it to two mirrors, one mirror being facing one way, one mirror on the opposite wall. You look into each mirror and you can look at yourself 100 times. It reflects back and forth, which is true. The way to avoid that, he says, is an apology, which I've been saying most of the time. He said the two most important words in marriage are "that's strange," and now he tells you the second most important phrase in marriage, which is not "I'm sorry." When he said that, I said no. The two most important words in marriage are "I'm sorry," and I asked my wife also what the two most important words in marriage is. She said "I'm sorry." And I asked my mother-in-law, and she also said, "I'm sorry." So I guess three people, it does not emblematic of the entire population, but I think anyone who has good experience in marriage knows the most important words are "I'm sorry," which he does say at the end. Talks about apologizing. He says the second most important phrase in marriage is "ouch," meaning when the husband insults the wife, they don't intend to do it, the author says. They're not intending to do it, or the wife insults the husband. They don't intend to do it, but the other person is hurt emotionally. And then what happens is that the person, why are you hurt? Why are you so hurt? And they try to explain themselves why they're right in saying what they said, or why they made the mistake that they said, but they had every right to say it. And it only makes it worse. Never try for explanation. The first 3 years of my marriage, that's what I did. I try to prove why I'm right, and I hurt my wife. Sometimes I was maybe right, sometimes I was wrong. It doesn't make a difference. The point is that it's irrelevant. Her feelings were hurt. And he says the second most important phrase in marriage is "ouch." The person who is hurt should say "ouch." Now, the reason this is wrong is because it's not the person's responsibility who's insulted to say "ouch." If they would say "ouch," and the person who insulted them would know, oh, it hurts them, so maybe I should apologize. No. You're not responsible to do that. The responsibility is on the person who says it. And when someone's hurt, it's usually for a genuine reason. Either they're insulted, or someone did something wrong to them, or disrespected, or things like that. So the proper way to get rid of this is, he says, to apologize. But again, he gets this wrong again, the author. He says how to apologize. He says it's not easy to apologize. It means taking responsibility. It means owning up to your error. It means admitting that you were wrong. That's not easy to do. The phrase "I was wrong" is one of the hardest things to say. "I'm sorry" isn't that tough. You were right isn't so hard. It won't happen again is easy. But the words "I was wrong" give us real trouble. Now, I don't believe you have to say, when you apologize, you say "I was wrong." That's included in saying "I'm sorry." And that's why I'm sorry is such a powerful word, because when you say "I'm sorry," it's hard to say you're wrong when you know you're right. A lot of times the person had a right to do what they did, to say what they said. Maybe the other person's too emotional. The person took it the wrong way. The person didn't have knowledge of some other fact going on in the other spouse's life. It happens. Maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. But when you say "I'm sorry," included in saying you're sorry is that I was wrong. You don't have to say you're wrong. That's why people are hard. It's hard for them to apologize, because the reason it's so hard for people to say "I'm sorry" is because included in saying "I'm sorry" is that you're wrong. You don't have to say you're wrong, and that puts you at a weakness. You don't have to say that. You want to maintain strength. As each spouse should maintain strength. Each person should maintain their own strength. Saying you're wrong when you know you're right is not advised. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be saying "I'm sorry," which includes basically saying "I'm sorry. If I did something wrong, I apologized had I done something wrong." Which basically includes, right, without saying it, is that if I'm right, I'm right. But I'm still sorry that I hurt your feelings. That's what "I'm sorry" is. "I'm sorry" is It has nothing to do. It removes whether I'm right or wrong from the equation. It's not about right or wrong. This is the way marriages work for sure, and any human relationship works for sure. The other person was insulted. They were hurt. They were disrespected. The way to fix that is just to say I'm sorry. All you gotta do is 2 words. Two most important words. Your marriage will change. We have a custom in my marriage. We don't go to sleep before we resolve a fight. If we get into a fight, we get into a fight right before we're going to sleep. We make sure, my wife insists on this more than me, but make sure that the person who's hurt apologizes. If I hurt my wife, I try to apologize. If she hurt me, she tries to apologize. And if someone says they're sorry, there's no other way but to accept it. They're your spouse, right? I can understand if someone's not related to you, or maybe even someone in a relationship but not your spouse. Maybe you don't accept when they say they're sorry. Maybe it's not genuine. But most decent marriages, they care for each other, the spouses. So when they say they're sorry, that solves all the problems. It throws away all the problems. That's the first point I want to make. The second point I want to make about this first half of the chapter is that, I don't know, maybe I'll talk about it in the second half of the chapter as he continues to elaborate upon how to apologize. I didn't know there was rules of apologizing. There's only 2 words that are necessary. I'm sorry. But the second half of the chapter is called The Art of Apology. I did not read it yet. How to apologize. I don't think it's that complicated, to be honest with you. But I will say this, that when he's talking about apologizing is when you said something or like disrespect, that you hurt somebody in some way. But that's talking about, right? He starts off the chapter talking about an example. What's his example? The example is David and Shira are a typical young couple. They've been married about 2 years. They've had their ups and downs, but on the whole, things are going pretty well. It's their date night. Of course, the author mentions it's their date night. Every week you should have a date night. Come on. And they've made up to meet in the city at 5:30 after work. Who finishes work at 5:30 in the city? It's February, and Shira is standing outside in the cold waiting for David. She looks at her watch. It's 5:40. She's irritated. Where is he? A few minutes pass, and she's starting to get aggravated. By 5:49, she's downright angry. Where is he? He's almost 20 minutes late. A minute or 2 later, David pulls up in the car. She gets in, and in a less than pleasant tone, she says, "I'm freezing out there. I'm really sorry I tried to rush. I can't believe you're so late. Do you know how long I was standing there? Look, I'm sorry. I tried my best. I had a report I needed to finish." It's interesting. He says, "Look, I'm sorry." Right? If you just ended the sentence there, that's it. But when you say you're sorry and you try to explain yourself, it ruins the apology. I had the report I need to finish. So that because he added on, I had a report I need to finish, so therefore the conversation continues. That was a mistake. A report, do you know how cold it is? Do you even care? Whoa. The husband said, "I'm sorry, I told you I left as soon as I could. Why are you getting so bent out of shape? You always do this to me, always." Shira, "My boss asked me for the quarterly report for J. Marcus. It's their largest account. He was waiting for it. I couldn't leave until it was done." "Your boss was waiting. Your client was waiting. What about your wife waiting?" "Oh, she doesn't count. She can wait." "I don't think that's fair. You know it's not like that," he says. "Not fair. You know it's not fair. It's not fair that my husband doesn't give a hoot about me or anything I care about." I guess a pretty typical fight. Now, again, I mentioned the fact that he should have just stopped and said, "I'm sorry," which was the mistake. Keep on explaining himself. It's not going to help. Even if you're right, it doesn't make a difference because you're right, so then the wife is going to feel worse that she's wrong. "Oh, I'm wrong. Yeah, I'm going to take back my hurt feelings. The fact that you kept me out in the cold for 20 minutes. You should have called. You should have done something. The husband was wrong over here. He should have said it. He should have called her, told her to go inside a coffee shop. I'll pick you up. The point is that all you have to do is say you're sorry. Even if you were wrong, it would have helped. But these type of examples, there's 2 types of fights in marriage. There's fights of marriage where both spouses, there's communication, good communication between them, and she's hurt, she says sorry. But there's a lot of wives out there, and there's even husbands out there. They'll get into the car, and they'll go on with their lives. Maybe they'll look a little perturbed, but they won't voice exactly what bothered them. And this is the better. What happened in this account is the better of the 2 sides. Better the 2 possibilities. It's better when both they have communication. They both can outwardly say what's bothering them. Because then, you can have negotiation. Once you have communication, you can have negotiation, right? And therefore, the apology is necessary. But if you want not to happen in the future, you have to communicate. And it looks like from this couple, they have good communication. But far more often than people think is that usually the wife is very silent. She won't say anything. She'll let things build up in her heart. Or sometimes the husband, he gets disrespected a lot by his wife. He doesn't say anything until one time he just bursts. And that is the worst. The worst. The worst is when people are not able to communicate. I mentioned the reason people are not able to communicate, it all goes back to the bedroom. Intimacy. Intimacy is the foundation of marriage. It's why you get married. Everyone knows that's the reason you get married. If you're lacking in your intimacy, there's problems in the bedroom. First of all, you're not gonna be able, if you can't communicate in the bedroom, you're probably not gonna be able to communicate outside the bedroom. And even if you somehow can communicate, if things are going right in the bedroom, right? There's always things that need to be fixed, that need to be worked on, need to be changed. As you go through life, right? The man's desire for his wife just decreases, keeps on decreasing because men need new women. So in the present situation we're in, men are in a very difficult position in marriage, and it's sort of unfair. Marriage is unfair. You can look at all, social media. People are talking about this all the time. Even Seinfeld talked about what's the point of a man getting married? It's really the concept of marriage, monogamy, is unfair to the man. It's really inherently unfair. The woman, if she has a good husband, she's happy with that one husband. But if a man, even if he has the most beautiful and most interesting wife in the world, the greatest personality, he will get bored of her. He doesn't want to get divorced from her, but he wants to add another wife. It's just inherent in human nature. So if the husband's a really good husband, because getting divorced is not a good alternative, because you can only be married to another wife, even if she's better than the first, she's still only one wife. You're still going to be despair that you only have one wife. So it doesn't help to get divorced, especially if you have kids. It makes your life much more complicated. So in the end, basically, the man is stuck. And if he's a good husband, because he inherently knows it's the right thing to be a good husband, he wants to have a good marriage, he'll continue to participate in the bedroom and do things even when he's not in the mood. Because the wife really wants to be together more than the man, if you didn't know that. Women want to crave it more than men, even though they won't say it. Women technically would want to be together every night. The chiyuv of ona is based on the strength of the man, what his job is, right? Women want to be together every night, technically, if they like their husband. Men don't have the power to do that. They get tired. Especially get older. They get tired. They're not interested. They lose interest. So he's a good husband. He keeps on trying to do it, but there's always going to be things that you have to negotiate and talk about in the bedroom. And to maintain that equilibrium in the bedroom is very difficult. That's the foundation of marriage. If you don't have that, right? And usually when there's problems in the bedroom, there's poor communication outside the bedroom, and people don't say anything. First of all, it's a problematic because you're missing either the woman's not getting something in the bedroom, and the man's not getting what he needs in the bedroom, and that's going to leave a sore in the person's heart. It's going to make them callous towards the other person. And even if they are technically getting most of what they need, but if they're not communicating, and somehow miraculously they get what they need, there's going to be a lack of communication outside the bedroom. And when someone's feelings get hurt or someone gets disrespected, they're not going to open their mouths, and they're not going to have good communication. And good communication is essential to a good marriage. So therefore, even though the author's talking about these types of things, these are minor things. The real things are abuse, not physical, verbal abuse or physical abuse. Domestic abuse is when someone's not getting what they need in the bedroom, and that ultimately causes all the marriage. So all the other gripes, when you come to a marriage counselor and you have this gripe about your wife or that gripe about your wife, or the wife has this to say about her husband, it's always a pretext. 98% of the time it's a pretext. It's because there's something lacking in the bedroom. It's just the reality of it. I said it many times during this book. That's the reality of marriage. If everything's good in the bedroom and you have good communication in the bedroom, usually your marriage will be good 98% of the time, and you'll be able to resolve your fights by saying I'm sorry very easily. There are other challenges to a marriage, but it's much easier to communicate, to resolve those things by negotiation, by talking about them and coming to a mutual agreement, which is beneficial for both of you. So really, that's the thing that's more severe, is when there's no communication. If there is communication, and each one, when they get upset, they tell the other person, you at least know what the problem is, and you can say I'm sorry. But a lot of times it simmers underneath in one spouse or both spouses, and they don't even know what they're, and when they say things that are bothering them, it's not really what's bothering them. And then you don't have communication. You don't know how to resolve the issue. Saying you're sorry about something that's not really, the person's not really upset about. People will come up with pretexts. He did this to bother me, but I'm not really upset about that. I'm upset about something else. Sometimes it's subconscious, sometimes it's even conscious, but you're unwilling to admit it. More times women are silent when they're getting abused, right? Not getting their needs met. And sometimes men are getting abused and they're also silent. So it's very important to communicate, and that's the first step. If you have good communication, you can resolve it by saying I'm sorry. But if that's not the issue, and the gripes are just a pretext for something deeper, then saying I'm sorry is not going to help because there's other problems going on. We'll talk about the second half of the chapter next at the end of the week. Hope you enjoyed today's shir. See you in the next one.